This is Cruise Radio.
I cruise a lot, and I always sail with travel insurance. You should too. Get a free quote today at tripinsurance.com.
Broadcasting from the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida.
This is
Cruise Radio.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Doug Parker. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Cruise Radio. Very happy to have you here, my friend. A review of Norwegian Jade this week, and as always, staff writer Richard Sims waiting in the wings with cruise news. Hey, Richard.
Ooh, I like being in the wings. It feels like I have my own space.
I was like, why am I saying that as it's coming out of my mouth? But I just kept rolling with it. So we're going to roll with it and say, starting off with some rather sad news, though, off Regal Princess, which dealt with a man overboard.
Yeah, so around 6 a.m. Monday, July 13th, a crew member went overboard. Once alerted, the ship, as it will began a search, which reportedly lasted around 9 hours. They received an assist from the Carnival Jubilee, which was already in the area. Unfortunately, the crew member, who reportedly was a member of the casino staff, was later reported to be dead. Obviously, a situation like this is traumatic for everyone on board, but man overboard situations hit a little differently when it's a crew member, because these are folks who work together and live together. You know, they get hit with this devastating loss of someone that they know, and yet they have to go on continuing to provide the best level of customer service that they possibly can. So, you know, it's just a little bit different than your typical man overboard. And our thoughts go to this crew member, his crew member's family, and as well as all of his friends that were on board.
Mm-hmm. And we have an update on Holland America's ongoing ship renovation program.
Yeah, we reported before about Holland America and the fact that they're taking 6 of their older ships and they're undergoing the most massive fleet update in the company's 153-year history. The Ulsterdam will be the first to undergo what they're calling the evolution, and it'll start welcoming guests to experience those changes in the fall of 2027. And passage for those sailings is now on sale. We now know that Zuiderdam will be the second ship to be dry docked under the Evolution program. There's no real word yet as to when the ship will be finished, but they are saying that bookings will, or at least they intend for them to go on sale on July 30th. So we'll get a better idea then. So what kind of changes will be made to Zuiderdam? One of the biggies is that they'll be adding the Grand Dutch Cafe, which is wildly popular on newer ships, but is only now being introduced to some of these other ships that are undergoing this transformation. They're also going to be adding 2 bridge view suites, which, as the name implies, are located directly above the bridge. And, you know, you get the same stunning view that the captain has, which is especially cool going into ports. The other change that they're making that I'm personally excited about, because I travel solo, is that they are going to be introducing solo veranda staterooms. A lot of cruise lines offer solo inside staterooms, but it's great to see more and more rolling out solo balcony staterooms. I mean, solos deserve fresh air too, right? One of the things that Holland America is being very smart about is that even as they discuss these new staterooms they're adding, they go out of their way to make it clear they will be, and I'm quoting from their press release here, open quote, maintaining the spacious experience for which our ship is known. Obviously, when you're adding staterooms, that space has to come from somewhere, and we'll find out where much later in this process, but they're very aware that this is something their ships are known for, being spacious, having room to breathe. So they're heading off complaints about public spaces being sacrificed for revenue generating staterooms by trying to sort of say, it'll be okay, everybody, take a deep breath.
I am interested to see where they're going to put those suites above the bridge, though, because on that class of ship, Oosterdam, Zuiderdam, and such, you're going to have the fitness center right above the bridge, and then you're going to have the crow's nest right above the fitness center. And you really can't go much higher than that unless you're on that public deck with the lounge chairs and stuff forward. So I'm very curious to see it. Maybe the deck plans are out already. I just haven't seen them yet because I've been traveling.
I looked. I didn't notice them. It is funny that you say that the gym is directly above the captain, because we go out of our way when you're looking for to book a cruise. You go out of your way to avoid being underneath the gym because they're going to be. So I kind of feel bad that first thing in the morning, the captain's sitting there trying to have his coffee and bang, bang, bang. There's all the gym going on upstairs.
Yes. And it looks as if Royal Caribbean will be expanding their presence in Texas if all goes as planned.
I think that last part, if all goes as planned, is important because we've seen several projects fall apart over the last few months, especially for Royal Caribbean. But as of now, it's looking good for them. So here's the thing. A fifth terminal has been planned for Galveston, which is seeing a real boom in their cruise tourism. Various studies, including traffic impact and things like that, were already undertaken. And as this was all happening, rumors began flying as to who might be planning to use this new terminal. Well, Port Director Roger Rees has apparently confirmed to the Galveston Daily News that this is going to be Royal Caribbean. I mean, he didn't come right out and say it is Royal Caribbean. He said basically word on the street is true, which is pretty much a confirmation. And that's certainly the way the newspaper took it. Obviously, it's way too early to even speculate about what ships might sail out of there as the terminal is still under construction. But this is the latest proof that Galveston, which really wasn't all that much of a player in the cruise industry until the last 5-10 years, is rapidly expanding. This will be the third new cruise terminal for the port since 2022, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's currently the fourth busiest cruise port in the United States and is making moves on the number 3 spot, which is held by Port Everglades. For the record, Port Miami comes in at number 2, and the number 1 busiest port in the USA is, well, the subject of our next story.
Yeah, Port Canaveral, because they also gave an update on a major expansion unfolding there.
Yeah, one of the challenges that any port faces is keeping up with the demand put upon it. I mean, on the one hand, you want your port to be wildly popular, but on the other, you start to say, hey, we need, more space here. That's especially true when you're talking about Port Canaveral, given how many people pass through there every day, let alone over the course of a year. Right now, they're in the middle of a project which represents a $175 million expansion, which will allow the port to continue meeting that demand. One of the projects is a new and expanded parking garage, which is important because, and I did not know this until today, around 80% of people who are sailing out of Port Canaveral start their trips by driving there. It's like one of the biggest drive-to ports in the country. The other project is a massive expansion of Terminal 5. And what's really impressive is that they're undertaking this expansion while the terminal is still open. That sounds crazy to me, but apparently they're doing it. Once it's done, the new terminal, or the expanded terminal, I guess I should say, will double in size and be able to accommodate some of the biggest ships in the world, up to around 5,600 passengers.
A passenger on Virgin Voyages was removed and left behind due to an alleged drug-related charge.
So this isn't just any sailing of a Virgin Voyages ship. This is the one we've been talking about the last week or two. It was chartered by Atlantis. It was a sailing of the Scarlet Lady. You'll recall that last week we told you the ship had been turned away from both Turkey and Egypt because it had been chartered by this LGBTQ group, Atlantis Events. Never in the entire history of this company, which has been around for like 36 years, has this ever happened, but it did. It got turned away from Turkey and got turned away from Egypt. Anyway, that wasn't the end of the problems because ship security was alerted to the fact that a 35-year-old Spanish man on board was allegedly possessing and distributing narcotics. When the ship docked in Greece, authorities came on board, searched his possessions, reportedly found small amounts of cocaine and cannabis. As a result, he was arrested but released. But that was not the end of it because he went back and found out he was not going to be permitted on the ship because of these charges. Instead, he was left behind, presumably to find his own way home, which is usually the case when someone is removed from a ship for violating any of the terms and conditions of the cruise contract, which would definitely be the case if you were, if you had drugs on board and or were distributing them.
And if you're hoping to visit Royal Caribbean's private destination, Labadee, it looks like that's not going to be happening anytime soon.
As of now, it seems as if Labadee will be a no-go until at least May of 2027. This is due to continuing unrest in Haiti and what the cruise line likes to call them acting in an abundance of caution. We hear that a lot when they are doing something that is basically in the best interest of cruisers, but they know that cruisers may not be happy about it. The guests who were scheduled to stop there are either being rerouted to alternative destinations such as Nassau or Costa Maya or Cozumel, and in some cases, they're just getting an additional sea day. The destination has been closed since April of 2025, which means that by the time it reopens, it will have been shuttered for at least 2 years. It's hard to imagine, you were talking about how much money the parking garage is going to make. It's hard to imagine how much money Royal Caribbean has lost as a result of the closure of Labadee.
All right, staff writer Richard Sims, as always, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here, as always.
Have a tip or a lead on a news story? Let us know. Email tips@cruiseradio.net.
A big question we get at Cruise Radio is, how do I know if I need trip insurance? Simple answer. If you're getting on a plane, taking a road trip, or getting on a cruise ship, you need to have travel insurance. Hey, it's Doug Parker from my friends at tripinsurance.com. Not only does tripinsurance.com protect your vacation investment, but it also gives you peace of mind in case anything were to go wrong on your trip. How do they do it? They offer 3 different types of trip insurance policies. Good, better, and best. One policy for every vacation budget. But it doesn't just stop there. They're up to 40% lower when you shop around on other comparison sites. Plus, tripinsurance.com offers 24-hour customer support before, during, and after your trip, online claims assistance, and travel alerts to let you know what's going on at your destination. But find out for yourself. Check out tripinsurance.com.
Over spring break, Ben took a 8-day cruise aboard Norwegian Jade. It was a repositioning cruise from San Diego and ended up in Vancouver. He joins us on the line to talk all about it. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing great, Doug. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, good to talk to you again, my friend. And this was out of San Diego, and you're in the Seattle area. So we'll take a step back and give me some pre-cruise thoughts. What made you want to hop on this 8-day repositioning cruise up to Vancouver?
Sure. So I'm a teacher, so I'm always looking ahead to the school breaks. And we live in Seattle, so we've done last-minute cruises to Alaska a few times. We've done Mexican Riviera. Someone told me hey, take a look at repositioning cruises for a good deal. And Pacific Coastal was the perfect timing and really affordable. It was also, we booked it on a Black Friday promo, so we got 4 latitude points per night.
Nice.
Instead of 1. And so with an inside cabin, I was like, all right, I'm going to think of this as like a mileage run. Cruising. You're able to climb a tier on the loyalty scheme.
Right.
I was also really excited to try the Jade. We've only done the Breakaway Plus and Prima class ships.
Mm-hmm.
And we always hear people raving about the Jewel class. Like staff writer Richard Sims is always talking about the gems. So I was excited to try kind of an older, more classic cruise ship experience.
You're going from Seattle to San Diego. Is there any pre-cruise time, or is that a day of trip for you?
It very well could have been a day of trip, but we have some anxiety in our family. So it's always a good idea to get there a day early, right? We landed and then we took a cab directly to the San Diego Zoo Safari Park, which is actually in Escondido, about 40-minute cab ride from the airport. We've done the original San Diego Zoo before, so I thought let's try something new. Highly recommended day at that safari park. They do these safari truck excursions way out into the nature reserve there, and it was a really great day. So we'd recommend that. And then we came back, stayed at a hotel by the pier, had dinner at a restaurant in the Little Italy area. And then the next day was embarkation day, and they have a really huge Sunday farmers market right there in the Little Italy area that we'd recommend doing if you've got a Sunday cruise. Yeah.
Yeah, it's such a neat area, San Diego, because there's so much you can do just when the ship docks. You can just get off and explore, and within a 10-minute walk, there's just so many activities out there.
100%. And like the airport is right there. It's a cool spot to go.
Yeah, definitely. So you make your way to the cruise terminal. How long did it take you from the curb to the ship?
We got there early. We had the earliest boarding time. I think it was at 10 or 10:30. Got there around 9:45. So from curb to ship, I'd say it was probably an hour and a half wait.
Mm-hmm. Not bad.
But no major delays. And it's a really nice terminal. They did a really good job with that. I'd highly recommend the San Diego embarkation terminal over the one in Los Angeles. It was very comfortable.
Yeah, much different. You mentioned this was your first time on this class of ship. So you're walking on board. What were your first impressions?
I will say the aesthetic was a little jarring for us coming from the newer ships. You could tell it'd been through at least 3 different areas of interior design. You have really modern stairwells and artwork and restaurants, but then a lot of dark kind of cherry wood and tropical theming in the corridors. And then the lounge spaces were still very early 2000s Las Vegas vibes. Right. So, we had a lot of fun with it. It was a very clean ship. The staff took a lot of pride in what they did and enjoyed their jobs. Never had to use an elevator because everything was just a couple flights up or down. Got the thermal spa passes on a Valentine's Day special. And I think that was definitely worth it, just to have a different spot to go on the ship. I think it just got a dry dock right after our cruise where they modernized the spa a little bit. And I think expanded the Starbucks. But first impression was good. It was definitely not the Viva where every square inch was aesthetically pleasing and cohesive, but it was still a nice ship.
You mentioned a few minutes ago that you booked an interior stateroom for 4 times points there. So what were your thoughts of the cabin through your 8 days?
We booked at Deck 10 near the forward stairwell, which is close to the spa and all the big lounges and theater. I had enough outlets for us. There were USB ports by the nightstands. It was all really clean, decent size glass shower door. Bed was comfortable. Linens were soft, good storage. Really no complaints at all. The toilet is at a 45-degree angle, kind of in the corner, which was a little odd, but not a deal breaker at all. Right. It was a nice cabin. It did the job. Did
the room feel dated though? Because you mentioned it just went into dry dock and the ship did come out a long time ago. So did it feel dated, or has it been, kept up with the times?
The entryway was all of the original cherry wood storage and paneling. And then when you stepped further into the cabin, they had redone that with kind of the walnut treatment and had a good little flat screen TV in there. And the artwork was refreshed. But yeah, it was not the crisp new feeling that the Breakaway Plus ships had, but we didn't mind it at all.
And on Norwegian Jade, the buffet area is called the Garden Cafe. So what did you think of the food selection in there? And did it ever feel too crowded throughout your sailing?
It really didn't. The food meals, we actually ate a lot more buffet meals than we have on the other ships. And food was always hot and fresh. There was more seating if you would walk all the way forward, kind of to the great outdoor buffet area. Only a couple times when we were there at peak meal time did it take a lap or two to find a seat. But the layout worked. They had the different serving islands so you could crisscross, and you never felt like you were in a huge line to see what was at the front of it.
And there are 2 main dining rooms. How different was the vibe between the 2, or was it the same menu, same service and everything?
Service was pretty much the same, and of course they share a kitchen in the middle, so the menus are the same each day. The larger of the 2 has sort of the big classic stately windows. Vibe-wise, pretty dated feeling in there. A lot of dark jewel tones, which makes sense for the class. And then the smaller main dining room had been updated, but the windows are small, and I would say that's kind of true throughout the whole ship. It's a much darker interior ship than on the newer one. Food was hot, fresh, service was great. No complaints about the main dining rooms at all.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how was the pacing of service there once you sat down in the main dining rooms?
It was great, especially for breakfast. We like to do main dining room breakfast. Just a little more personalized service there, less chaotic. I think our embarkation lunch was the only clunky one. We got there right at the beginning of service, and we had to wait a little longer on that one, but it was all good.
Now, you said you booked the Free at Sea Plus package for this sailing. So how many specialty nights did you get?
The basic Free at Sea on a week-long sailing, you get 3 meals included at the specialty restaurants. And then the Plus doesn't give you additional meals, but what it does do is it's half off the cover charge of any extra meals that you want to book while you're on board. So we ended up going to think 5 or 6 of them. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Very good. Let's talk about those dining venues though. So like give us the first one and then the food highlight for you, then we can talk about the next one.
So up first was the teppanyaki restaurant, which we had a great time. It's a smaller physical layout or footprint for the teppanyaki on the ship. There were only 2 or 3 big table bays. And so the nice aspect about that was there's a lot quieter than the bigger ships where they've got 5 or 6 of those bays in there all clanging about. So you could actually have a conversation and enjoy your dinner and the entertainment that came with teppanyaki. The next one was Le Bistro, which once again was the best meal of the cruise. I don't know what they're doing to make Le Bistro so consistently great across all their ships. I wish they could figure that out with Cagney's. We passed on Cagney's this time because it's been so hit or miss. But Le Bistro, incredible dinner.
Ben, before you move on, with teppanyaki, is this the class of ship that it's the teppanyaki restaurant is more like you have to walk through another restaurant and then the teppanyaki tables are kind of tucked in the back?
Yeah, that's it. So they have a Jasmine, which I think used to be a complimentary venue, and they moved it to be a cover charge. You do need to walk through that restaurant to get back into the teppanyaki room.
Okay, gotcha.
But your host takes you back there. You won't get lost.
Gotcha. Sorry to cut you off. What was your third restaurant?
So there were 3 new restaurants for us, new to us. The Jasmine, which I just spoke about, and it's kind of your catch-all Asian cuisine. They do have sushi rolls there from the sushi bar, which is a separate restaurant option. And I recommend just going to the sushi bar. The portions were really generous. It was delicious sushi. And we live in Seattle, so we have pretty good sushi. I would say between the 2, I would pass on using a dining credit at Jasmine and just get a seat at the sushi bar because you're going to leave very full. And it's really, really good fresh sushi there. And then the other one that was new to us was the Moderno Brazilian Steakhouse, which lived up to the hype from your previous episodes. We had a really good dinner there. The salad bar was awesome. Somebody gave advice to maybe pass on the chicken or the sausages and wait for the better cuts of meat, which we did. They were really, really good. And the grilled pineapple lived up to its legend as well. So that was a really great restaurant for us.
Is the Brazilian Steakhouse, does it have its own venue? I remember when I sailed Norwegian Star, this is probably about 10 years ago or so, they almost like split Cagney's in half, and half was Cagney's and half was part of the Brazilian experience. Is it like that on Norwegian Jade, or does it have its own dedicated venue?
I have a hunch that split may have happened. It was on the top deck. So there's an elevator and stairwell bay, and you can turn right to Cagney's where the views are forward and probably better, or left into Moderno, and you're kind of overlooking the pool deck there. I
was surprised they made Jasmine a for-fee restaurant. I've been there 3 times, and I think that it was much better as obviously everyone probably does, much better as a complimentary restaurant or all-inclusive, but also it's not, like you said, it's not one I would waste a dining credit on.
No, it was pretty typical takeout quality. I mean, nothing was bad, but Norwegian does such a good job with the Asian food in their buffet. I feel like you could just get very similar items up at the buffet if you wanted to have an Asian dinner. Also go to La Cucina on this one, which we had been to on the Bliss, and we were pretty disappointed with it. And I'm glad we went on the Jade. It was a really good dinner, and I think it was worthy of a dining credit. I'm not sure I'd feel great about paying the full cover charge for the Italian restaurant, but with the discount or a dining credit, it was definitely worth it. And the pizzas there are the fresh, made to order wood-fired pizza. Of course, it was too much food, so we asked, hey, could we take this back to our room? And they said, well, we're not supposed to do that, but what's your room number? So I told them, and they actually delivered the leftover pizza in a pizza box to our stateroom. And I was able to kind of tear up the box and shove it in the fridge and have cold pizza for breakfast the next day, which was awesome. Do a little MacGyvering there, and it was worth it. And it was much better pizza than what was in the buffet too. So I'd recommend that one. That was our last specialty dining.
Well, I think that's the thing too, Ben, is that when they really leaned into this free at sea plus, whatever their latest promotion is, they just really inflated the cost of, like, for instance, Cagney's is, I believe, around $60 now, but it's like $72 with the gratuity. And I wouldn't, I wouldn't roll in there and say, I'm going to pay $72 if it wasn't included for something. They're banking on you using those dining credits with free at sea.
It's really true. I would say of all the restaurants, at least on the Jade, Le Bistro is worth the $72 and then some. It's that good. And I would say the sushi, I mean, no one really wants to pay $60 for, for sushi, but it was very good and generous. But that half price inclusion on the free at sea plus was totally worth it. I wish that they had been open for lunch. We would have had lunch there several times.
If my memory serves me correctly, you're a theater teacher, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, is it theater or drama? What do they call it these days?
Well, nowadays drama is more the genre, but theater is the craft or the art form.
Okay.
One of the more pretentious things I've said in the last
which brings us to our next our next topic, that was entertainment. So how did it stand out? I know you always look at it with a keen eye.
I do. I was pleasantly surprised this time. I had been bemoaning the loss of the real Broadway productions as of late. The pleasant surprise was the Jade had a house orchestra, which they did not have on the Joy. So, the musical theater review production show had a live orchestra on stage, and that alone elevated the quality of the show compared to when they were singing to canned backing tracks. It just adds a little more of an event feel to it. So that was one of the options, was the Broadway showcase. They do this thing called famous riffs on a number of their ships, and we had always passed it, but I went to it this time, and it was fun. It's like a game show with a live band, and they have passengers as the contestants in teams, and it's sort of a mix of karaoke, or the band will play a snippet from a song, and then you buzz in to guess. And they did a really good job with that as a unique quasi game show, but also entertainment offering. The two big production shows, one was called Fusion, and it was bad. And the next one was called Blazing Boots, and it was pretty good. It was sort of a country music themed production show, and they had a real set and great costume changes on that. There's no plot, but it was worth the 45 minutes in the theater. Comedian was good. The other performers around the ship were pretty good. The Jade was an older crowd, I would say. So a lot of the offerings is skewed toward Elton John and the other classics, but there's good music throughout, and all in all, the entertainment was fine, if not good, for me.
Fair enough. I do want to circle back to dining before we go any further here, and because in the main atrium there, off of the atrium up a level, is what is it called, O'Sheehan's, or the local on this one?
I think it was O'Sheehan's, yeah. And
did you jump in there at all during the sailing?
Well, funny you should mention that. So, not intentionally, and we'll get to this when we talk about sea days, but one of the difficulties we had with the ship was the public venues were limited. And what happened is we go to the LGBTQ meetup one of the nights, and we're all sitting there, and they said, oh, you can't sit here, we have a private event. And we're like, well, we know it's right here on the schedule, this is where we're supposed to meet. And they said, no, where we're doing a captain's meet and greet thing here, you need to go somewhere else. And we were like, oh, okay. So we went to a couple different crew members to ask where should we go, and everyone seemed a little flustered and didn't know what to do with us. So I just went to the host at O'Sheehan's and said, hey, there's a dozen of us. We're not here for dinner, but would it be possible for us to pull some tables together and just have a drink here? And she was like, oh yeah, happy to help. And that's messed up that we couldn't find a place. So I did appreciate her willingness to help feed us. And yeah, we had a drink there and it was fine.
So we'll go back to the entertainment. You said that we pretty much covered that with everything going on outside. You had the Elton John, Billy Joel music playing inside the theater, the shows there. So we'll talk about sea days then. Crowds and congestion overall, whether we're talking about by the pool or the buffets, the restaurants, just navigating around the ship. How was it?
Kind of a clunky layout. I really missed the Deck 8 promenade that the Breakaway and later ships had with the heated outdoor spaces and couches and kind of that cozy option to go to that was still warm. You know, the interior spaces were pretty dark and pretty limited. So on our sailing, it's, you know, the Pacific coast in April, so it's not hot. So we're not spending a lot of time in the outdoor bars or pool area. Your options were the atrium, but it's not really designed as a gathering place. It's really all pointed at the Starbucks there. So there weren't a lot of activities happening in the atrium. So they put those up in the Spinnaker Lounge, which is, to me, was like a precursor to the observation lounges on the newer ships. But everything is geared toward the stage up in the Spinnaker Lounge. So if you wanted to go read a book somewhere by a window, you could, but bingo would be happening, or a balloon popping competition or something in that space. So then your next option was the Bliss Ultra Lounge nightclub, where they had programming there, but it was a pretty dark venue. And then your last real place to go would have been the Bar City, which was a cool mix of 3 different bars all in a row. But the seating there was pretty limited, and it's right next to the casino. So you have slot machine noises bleeding through, and then they would have a performer on stage right there. And then there would be house music coming through the ceiling at the same time. So it was just a lot in that space. They had a library and a card room, but they just took those out on the dry dock and put in more cabins. So it was kind of a frustrating experience. I think if we had had a balcony, it would have been fine. We would have been happy to just, you know, sit and enjoy the views from there. But with the inside cabin, we really struggled to find a place to just hang out on a sea day and not feel like we were taking a seat of someone who wanted to participate in an activity.
Is it fair to say the Spinnaker is more of a catch-all venue where you could like walk in and there could be a seminar happening at one time, trivia happening at another, or okay.
For sure. And it really was kind of a blast from a different era. It kind of gave stripper pole vibes.
Yeah.
These circular bayed couch tables, and it was just kind of an odd spot.
How was the casino as far as the smoke situation and around it?
You know, the casino itself was actually pretty smoke free. The vents were working full force. I would say the forward stairwells, the smoke could drift up a few decks there. So we would always notice it passing through. It didn't stink up the entire ship or never reached our cabin or anything, but it was always like, oh, let's be close to the casino.
Do you play at all?
You know, we'll sit at the slot machine for a minute, but we're not big gamblers there. We do the bingo. We enjoyed that because I feel like if I'm going to lose money, at least spread it out for an hour.
Yeah, it's not going to be in 5 minutes, right? Yeah. Very cool. All right, well, let's talk about your ports of call. This was a Pacific coastal cruise, so you leave San Diego. What was your first port and what was your highlight?
So first up was San Francisco, and we actually got an overnight in San Francisco, which we've never had on our cruises so far. So it was really fun to know that we had 2 days and did not feel like we had to get right back to the ship on the first day. We booked a Viator that kind of hit all the major San Francisco highlights: the Zigzag Hill, the Mrs. Doubtfire House. It stopped at the San Francisco Bridge. It was a clear day, so got some great pictures there. And then we went to Muir Woods and had an awesome time at the national park there. exploring and seeing the trails. And then it did a quick stop in Sausalito, and we got permission to end our tour there so we could spend some time. And then we took a ferry back to downtown from Sausalito. And that ferry was cool because it got great views of both the bridge and Alcatraz. One tip on that is stop and read all of the signage for the ferry. There's a couple different ferries that alternate times, and you can actually use the free transit app. And, we paid like $18 each, but it could have been a $2 trip if we had just collected the information in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that evening we did do Alcatraz. It was one of the last groups out to the island, which I would recommend. It was much less crowded there, and we could actually see and enjoy and walk through the whole island and have that experience.
Yeah, that's a cool little thing to do there. And sorry to cut you off. In Alcatraz, that's a cool little experience to do if you have the time and have never done it before. I learned so much there, and I used to be obsessed with the movie Alcatraz or Escape from Alcatraz growing up, and so actually like to go there and see what it was like, and just to stand there and be like, wow, these people had a long swim if they were trying to get to shore. No wonder why they didn't make it.
Yeah, totally. And I thought the audio tour was quite genius. I wish other historic attractions took a lesson from their playbook, because it spaces everyone out really nicely, and it tells you to turn left at this L and whatever. But you end up learning so much more that way, and not feeling like you're 1,000 people all craning your neck to see the same thing. So I'd really recommend it. They've done a great job with that whole experience. And then to talk about some of the indigenous protests that had happened and the takeover in the 70s. There's a lot more to it than what you always hear about or think of.
After San Francisco, what was up next?
Next was Astoria, Oregon, and that was a fun, quaint seaside town. We went to the film museum there, did some antique shopping, met up with some friends for lunch. Just your classic Pacific Coast small town, but it was a nice day for sure.
So after Astoria, what was up?
It was Seattle.
Oh, home sweet home for you.
Home sweet home. It was funny. Yeah. Took our suitcases home actually, and unpacked a little bit, and then repacked just a day bag for the rest of the trip. And fed the fish and watered the plants. Awesome. Kind of funny to do, but sometime I could do a whole episode on tips and tricks for sailing out of Seattle and places to stay and what to eat. But for us, it was just a quick visit home.
I'm curious, once you were in Seattle, you're like, okay, I have one more night left of the cruise and we're in Vancouver. Were you thinking like, maybe we should just, I know you couldn't because of the rules of the road, but were you thinking it'd be nice to get off and not have to deal with getting back from Vancouver? Or were you looking forward to ending in Vancouver and spending some time there?
Honestly, we were really looking forward to it. We had Victoria and Vancouver left. So in our minds, it kind of took spring break it broke it into two separate vacations a little bit. We were looking forward to heading up to Canada. We did have to ask, well, I don't know if we had to, but I felt weird about taking all of our luggage off. So we went to guest services on embarkation day just to triple check that this would be fine. And they had to ask around, but no one seemed to see any problem with it. So we just jumped on the light rail, dropped everything off at home, and went back and had dinner on the ship.
I will say this, though, before we go any further, if anyone ever thinks about jumping off at their home port and not returning to the ship, you're going to have Customs and Border Protection looking for you, and you're going to have about a $1,500 fine, and you're going to be getting banned from the cruise line as well for life. So think about that before jumping off in your home port if you don't want to ever return to the ship. Because I've read horror stories about it, and I've actually received a lot of emails over the past 17 years of people who tried it and have paid dearly. So it goes further than it's just not between you and the cruise line and them getting pissed and banning you. It's more of having the government involved too, and it's been like that for almost 2 decades that I know of.
I believe it. I think it was interesting because when I talked to guest services about the luggage, they were clarifying. So you are coming back, and said, yes, of course we are. It did seem like there is a way to arrange in advance an earlier departure, but I think it would all have to be on the up and up with the cruise line, of course. And you'd have to have a really compelling reason to do it. But yeah. Don't wing it.
So then you did Victoria next. How was Victoria?
We had a great day in Victoria. And what was nice on this itinerary is it was like a 10-hour stop, whereas Victoria is usually that 4-hour, 8 p.m. to midnight Alaska cruise add-on. So we got to go to the Bouchard Gardens, took a cab from the port up there, did the high tea in their restaurant in the gardens, just had a really great morning and afternoon there. Mentioned to the server that we were going to go downtown next, and he gave us some recommendations of cocktail haunts in town. So we were sure to hit those. We walked through the Chinatown. And then we had a dinner reservation at the Courtney Room, which is in a hotel next to the Empress, which is the big famous historic hotel. And that was where we went for dinner on our honeymoon. So it was nice to go back there, and they treated us really well with a really great service and great meal. Yeah. And then we just walked back to the ship, and it was kind of sunset at that point. It was kind of a picture perfect day in Victoria for sure.
Is the Empress, is that the Fairmont?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fairmont Empress.
Such a beautiful property
and
there.
It's gorgeous. And you can certainly walk through it or, have a drink or tea in their restaurants and bars too, if you're visiting on a cruise. And the town is so cool.
It is. Yeah.
It's wild to me. We always forget, like, especially in Seattle, we could come here more often. It's not that hard to get here. And in fact, you can even take a seaplane from downtown Seattle to Victoria. And if you book it at the right time, it's a pretty good deal. And I'd recommend that over the Clipper ferry or driving or the train, because it's like 45 minutes, and customs takes about 10 seconds because there's 6 people on the plane with you, and you're there. It's cool.
You ended in Vancouver the next day. Any post-cruise time in Vancouver?
Yeah, we walked to Stanley Park, went to their aquarium, and then took a cab to the Olympic Village area to explore that a little bit and have lunch. And we chose that because it was a really close walk to the Amtrak, and we were taking the train back down to Seattle. That's also a beautiful train ride too. If you were, trying to compare costs of flying into Vancouver versus Seattle, to take a look at the difference there, and maybe if you've got the extra day, use Amtrak because it's right on the coast. And another amazing sunset. Recommend if you're taking the train down to sit on the right side of the train, because you're watching the sunset the whole way down. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know when you leave out of Vancouver, you kind of clear customs before you board the ship for your way back. So how was it when you arrive in Vancouver from San Diego? Was there any kind of customs or border protection process on their end or our end?
I'm certain there was, but it was pretty invisible. We bought some flower seeds at the gardens, and it was really nice at the checkout there. They ask you, are you traveling? And then they packaged it all up and they put the barcode on it. And I don't even think they asked about that on the ship, but they definitely did on the train. Customs at the border crossing came through the train, and we had to declare everything. And they really did. They were pretty thorough.
What is that like when they walk through the trains? Is it just everyone's holding their passports up?
Yep. Passports, anything to declare. You got to have your ticket on your phone, or if you printed it out, have that handy.
Well, we were talking about it went into dry dock after your cruise, and it got the Vibe Beach Club, or I guess an extra addition to the Vibe Beach Club, the full service Starbucks now, and some upgrades to the spa, which you were talking about. But I want to circle back to the spa. And how was the thermal suite that you bought?
It was definitely dated. What was different about it is it's separate for the two genders. So the men's side, I'm sure the women's too, it has its own sauna, its own hot tub, a cold plunge, and a steam room, and a tropical shower or something. And then and a couple just cushioned loungers by the windows. And then you can go through a door to a common area in between, where they have the heated ceramic loungers and a thermal jetted tub thing there. But it was comfortable. The hot tub was hot enough. We actually got to see potted dolphins from the hot tub in the spa, nice. Which is pretty special. Like I was talking earlier, because the public spaces are so limited, if you have an inside cabin, having the thermal spa or the Five Beach Club, if it's a sold out sailing and a summer hot destination, I think you really would need to have that option, or at least I would, to maximize the time at sea. It
is interesting, I guess maybe because it's an older ship, that's why it's not a co-ed thermal suite, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it could be with the refurbishment. I could see them possibly taking down the partitions and making the whole forward section of the spa with the loungers and the hot tubs all co-ed, and just keeping the saunas as separate. Or maybe they'll figure out a way to make it all co-ed and just have double the saunas and double the steam rooms.
Right,
That'd
yeah.
be nice.
Did you feel like there was enough heated chairs, though, for the people who had the pass?
Probably not. I think there were maybe 6 there in the middle. And so I'm sure that they would be packing more of those in with the renovation.
Yeah. How was the debark process? You mentioned that it was pretty flawless as you made your way through customs, but getting from the ship to the curb.
Well, yeah, and like I said, we just had a day bag, so we didn't have to deal with the luggage the night before or anything like that. We literally just walked off.
Love it.
And I don't even remember standing to have my face scanned or anything.
Any first-time tips to offer anyone who might be either doing a repositioning cruise like this or sailing on Norwegian Jade?
Yeah, I would say, with Norwegian, the specialty dining reservation process, you can do it about 3 or 4 months in advance, but they only offer a very limited number of spaces in that pre-booking. So if you don't get the reservation time or the restaurant you want, you can book once you're on board on embarkation day. With the Jade in particular, the line to do that booking was massive, and people were pretty frustrated with it. So before we got into the line, I was like, let's try to get into the app and get the Wi-Fi connected. And we were able to book the same slots once we were on board just inside the app to skip that line. And the newer ships will have touch screens by the elevators. And I know you can book the specialty dining reservations on those screens too. But anything to avoid that long, harried line making its way to the ship on embarkation day would be a tip of mine.
Yeah. Looking back, the biggest highlight of this cruise for y'all?
I'd say probably sailing under the Golden Gate Bridge on our second San Francisco day. That was pretty iconic to be able to do that. And the bridge was out and the weather was clear, so that was really special. And honestly, just seeing the zoos and the aquariums and the gardens and national parks of the West Coast, it's a pretty cool place to live here, and we're fortunate to be so close to it all. And it's a great destination on its own, even if you're not from the area. I think it's worth doing once.
Was the value there for the price you paid? You mentioned that you had a couple of good deals. You got a Valentine's Day deal and a Black Friday deal. So collectively, was the value there?
Very much so, yeah. Especially going with the inside cabin. I think that made the splurge on the free at sea plus experiment worth it. And the inclusions on that, we pretty much broke even. I did a little math at the end of each day to see. We definitely, with the plus, ended up drinking a lot more Starbucks and sparkling water at dinner and squeezed juices and all of that than we would normally pay for as we went. But we found a way to break even and come out a little ahead. And it was nice to have that sort of all-inclusive experience. The big thing with the plus is you get the unlimited streaming Wi-Fi package, which is not something we would ever pay for. It is so outrageously expensive. But to have all of these other things thrown in on top, that was actually a really nice and different experience, to not have to get into the app, turn your minutes on, check your email really quick, and then remember to go back to the app to turn your minutes off. It was nice to just be able to, open your phone and make a plan for what to do in Astoria in a few hours.
You mentioned the break-even point. Do you feel like because you have the package, it makes you splurge a little more on maybe drinking a couple of extra lattes during the day or margaritas or what have you, like you wouldn't typically do if you didn't have the package?
Yeah, there was some of that. Like, it includes bottled waters from the bar, so we didn't have to journey up into the buffet to refill a water bottle that way.
Mm-hmm.
But we would never be paying for bottles of water throughout the cruise. And some of the other inclusions, though, really were pretty good value for us. Like, you get 40% off the wine and cocktail classes, which run at about $25 extra charge full price. And we always do one or two of those. So it was pretty easy to rack up the value. And I do think that the wine and spirits that are included in the plus was a noticeable difference. It was like, okay, no, I'm going to have a really good martini, not just a martini because it's free,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100% there. Very good. Well, in closing here, Ben, your final thoughts of Norwegian Jade.
I think it was probably the wrong mix of itinerary, ship, and stateroom category for us. I wish we had done a balcony on this one in particular, because the public spaces were limited and you don't want to be outside at that time of year on the Pacific. I think if you're on the Jade in Alaska, definitely get the balcony, get the spa. It would probably be an amazing ship for the Caribbean or somewhere hot, because it does have pretty generous outdoor spaces and pool spaces. So our impression of the small ship experience would have been different if we hadn't been on a repositioning with an inside cabin on a cold weather. But overall, can't complain at all. I didn't have to cook or clean for a week. I got to see some really cool sights on the West Coast, and had a really great vacation.
Fair enough. We've been talking with Ben about his 8-day cruise on Norwegian Jade from San Diego up to Vancouver. Ben, always good talking to you, my friend. How many points do you have now with the Norwegian program? Because we've interviewed a handful of sailings of NCL now.
Yeah. We got 32 points on this one.
Nice.
We went from 0 to platinum, I think,
nice.
In about 5 trips.
I love it. Ben, thank you again, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Doug.
All right, Dougie, let's see what we got for you, buddy. Cruise Radio is produced at the tripinsurance.com studios in Jacksonville, Florida. Get cruise news, ship reviews, and money-saving tips every Thursday on Cruise Radio. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show. If you want to help spread the word, give Cruise Radio a 5-star review. Find Cruise Radio where you listen to your favorite podcast or online at cruiseradio.net. I'm your announcer,